If you take a look around, the world seems fucked. Every time you open your phone, it's more bad news, outrage farming, polarization, mistrust in the institutions that we're supposed to trust, and it feels like we're living in a time where nobody agrees on what's real anymore. And now, with generative AI, we don't even know if what we're seeing happened at all. Conspiracy theories run rampant across the internet, from vaccines containing microchips, 5G spreading illnesses, the Illuminati controls world events, the New World Order, celebrities and politicians secretly being reptilian people. The list goes on. I mean, I'm sure that some of them are based in a dabble of truth, but some of them are absolutely not. And 4 of them, which are arguably the biggest and most popular conspiracy theories of all time, are still being peddled by celebrities and billionaires like Kim Kardashian, who I'm gonna get to in a minute. And the scary part isn't that people believe these conspiracies, it's that your brain was built to believe them too. So in this video, we are gonna talk about those 4 specifically and why people still believe them in the big year of 2026, because it reveals something much deeper about how humans think, trust, and attempt to explain the world around us. And how we know, with absolutely zero shred of a doubt, that these are not conspiracy theories, and they are actually real. And by the end of this video, you'll understand not just why they're wrong, but why they spread so easily. And we are gonna start with the most famous conspiracy theory of all time, that we never actually landed on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Because millions of people all over the world still believe that NASA and the US government faked the moon landing. This was at the peak of the space race. The US and Soviet Union were in a massive competition for global dominance, and landing on the moon wasn't just science, it was a political victory. And people believe that the US would have done anything to win that race, even if it meant faking it. That is the entire foundation that this conspiracy is built on. And those who believe it will typically refer to one of 5 points to prove their theory. Even when we are going back to the moon, like right now, if you're seeing this video when it first comes out, which thank you, by the way. The Artemis 2 crew should be on the way as we speak to do a flyby ahead of Artemis 3's moon landing next year. But even when we land back on the moon in 2027, I'm sure people will still say that the original was faked. And it's not because these people are dumb or less intelligent. In fact, they could actually be incredibly smart or curious people. It's because conspiracy theories are built to perfectly take advantage of the human brain. In 2023, in a clinical psychology study that analyzed over 158,000 participants across the US, UK, and Poland, they found that overall, believing in conspiracy theories comes down to the most basic human nature of wanting to feel safe in your environment, and that the community or tribe you identify with is superior to others. And a great way to make people feel superior is by making them believe that they are in on something that the others are not, which makes them no longer just a random person, but someone with an active role in the story. A way to feel like they have some sort of control or agency in a world that is seemingly designed to make us feel the opposite. And I do think it's important to not judge people for succumbing to what might be the most basic human instinct. But saying that, we can steer them in the right direction.
Do you think that we didn't walk on the moon?
I don't think we did. I think it was fake. I've seen a few videos on Buzz Aldrin talking about how it didn't happen. He says it all the time now in interviews.
People always start with the first question. Why are there no stars in the pictures? I mean, we're on the moon. Shouldn't the sky be filled with them? There's no atmosphere to distort the image and no clouds to block the view. And despite all of the CGI or the other practical effects they used to fake these pictures, NASA could not have faked the glorious lunar sky. So they opted to not include any stars at all. Well, no. Similarly to how we don't see stars during the daytime here on Earth, it was daytime on the moon when the astronauts were there. So even though they could absolutely see other stars, they were standing in direct sunlight and the cameras were set for bright exposure. So the stars were there, the camera just couldn't capture them. Then people will point to the flag and say something along the lines of, well, there is no wind on the moon, so why is the flag waving? And they are absolutely right, there is no wind on the moon, but the flag wasn't isn't waving. If you look closely, NASA inserted a telescopic pole along the top of the flag to hold it outright, giving the illusion of the flag flying properly. Again, looking to display American dominance. The wrinkles you see on the flag are not from blowing in the wind, but are from the flag being packed into a tiny storage pouch on the 4-day journey to the moon. And if you've ever improperly folded clothes and stuffed them in a drawer, you've definitely seen the same effect. Then you have the shadows. Because the shadows aren't parallel, it must prove the light was coming from multiple sources, aka studio lights. But shadows on uneven ground don't behave like shadows on a flat movie set. The moon is full of dips, slopes, and craters, and perspective alone can make shadows appear to angle differently, even under a single light source, which was the sun. And then comes the most dramatic argument. The Van Allen radiation belts would have killed them. Earth's radiation belts are filled with charged particles, and traveling through them would surely have given the astronauts radiation poisoning. And the easiest way to explain this one is actually firewalking. People are able to walk across fire without getting burnt because they are traveling quickly enough to prevent thermal energy from going into their feet and burning them. And Apollo astronauts traveled through the belts quickly, their trajectory avoided the most intense regions, and the total radiation dose they received would have been comparable to an X-ray. But if all of that could be true, the most glaring question, if we were really able to go to the moon, then why haven't we gone back? Well, we have actually. 6 more times. A total of 12 humans have walked on the lunar surface, and today, NASA is actively preparing to return via the Artemis program to establish humanity's long-term presence on the moon, building the Lunar Gateway Station for future deep space missions and lunar nuclear reactors. And I mean, well, one day people may still argue about whether or not the first moon landing was real. I think in the next few years, there will be absolutely no doubt that humans are technologically advanced enough to be on the moon. So maybe this video will find its way to Kim K's desk, but at the end of the day, I don't even think that she believes the moon landing was faked. I think she was just looking for publicity. So moon landing deniers, you have been officially debunked. But this next conspiracy isn't about the past, it's actually about the future, and it might be the biggest threat that we face in our lifetimes.
The Earth has reached its first catastrophic tipping point for human-caused climate change, according to a new report by scientists in Europe.
Probably the most controversial out of all of these conspiracies. Climate change. And in a 2021 survey, 10% of Americans said they don't think climate change is happening at all. 25% said they believe the climate is changing, but that it is not due to human activity. And another 10% said they were unsure. Now, climate change denial has personally never made much sense to me, because if we can agree that pumping our lungs full of smoke will have detrimental effects on the health of our lungs, then it's easy enough to buy into the idea that pumping our planet full of gas will also have a negative effect. And I do think that there is a helplessness aspect to this one, because why worry about something that is seemingly so out of our control? But I'll touch on that in a second. It is true that Earth's temperatures have always fluctuated. We have gone through periods of intense cooling or intense warming, and the planet can survive and even thrive in both phases. It is life that will suffer. And while some species can evolve and adapt, a lot of them don't survive these transitions. And for the last 10,000 years, since the last ice age, Earth's climate has been relatively stable, which scientists say not only helped, but was actually crucial to the development of human civilization. But that stability is now falling. The Earth is warming up at the fastest rates we've seen in the last 2,000 years, and is about 1.2 degrees hotter than it was in pre-industrial times. The last 10 years have been the warmest on record, with 2024 being the hottest recorded year of all time. So while yes, the Earth's climate has always fluctuated, other key climate indicators like ocean temperatures, sea levels, and atmospheric levels of carbon dioxide are rising at record rates, while sea ice and glaciers are melting equally as fast. 25% of people are willing to admit that this is true, but they have a hard time believing that humans are capable of causing it. But by measuring things from ice cores to tree rings to rock samples, we can track the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere, and they are the highest they've been on our planet for the past 2 million years, while other greenhouse gases like methane and nitrous oxide are the highest they've been in 800,000 years. That is directly tied to the burning of coal, oil. That is directly tied to the burning of coal, oil, and gas. But hold on, if the world is warming at a record speed, then how have we had such extreme winter weather in the past 10 years? As the planet heats up, melting Arctic ice can disrupt ocean currents and the jet stream, causing regional cooling in different areas. Warmer air also holds more moisture. Storms become more intense, bringing heavier rain, stronger hurricanes, and even more powerful blizzards when temperatures are still below freezing. And I think the final point when it comes to climate change, whether people want to admit it or not, is that sometimes it can feel like a losing battle, one that people like you and I can't really do anything about. And sometimes when we're in a situation that seems dire and so far out of our own control, it's easier to deny that it's happening and go about our lives as if nothing was wrong. And look, I really don't feel like being any sort of preacher here, but what I will say is that humanity has overcome so many hurdles throughout our existence and have continued to defy expectations and persevere when things got bad. So I believe, or would like to believe, that climate change is just one more problem that our species will find a way to solve. But it starts when we can all come together and admit that it's happening. So climate change deniers, you have been debunked. We are starting to see a pattern here. Moon landing conspiracy says they lied about the past. Climate denial says they are lying about the future. But this next one takes it a step further. It is not just mistrust in NASA or world governments. It is a mistrust in reality itself.
There's at least one truth we thought was indisputable.
And the Earth is
Flat.
The Earth is flat.
My reality, my senses tell me that the Earth is flat and stationary.
The flat Earth is conspiracy thinking in its purest form. It really has nothing to do with evidence and more so to do with identity. People who want to feel like they can see something that no one else can. But the truth is, we have known the Earth is round since 500 BCE, first proposed by Pythagoras over 2,000 years ago. The ancient Greeks were able to come to this conclusion because of how ships disappear when they sail over the horizon. Earth casts a round shadow on the moon during a lunar eclipse, and different constellations are visible at different latitudes. Even though they couldn't prove it yet, all of the evidence that they collected demonstrated that our planet was in fact a round one, and it is the easiest one to debunk on this list. Satellites show us that the Earth is round. Astronauts have told us that the Earth is round. Gravity works by pulling everything towards the center, meaning any large object in space will adopt a spherical shape. Time zones, seasons, shadows, none of these things would make sense if the Earth was flat. We have literal photos of the Earth showing us that it is round. The moon looks like this in the northern hemisphere and like this from the southern, which would only be possible if people in Australia were upside down in relation to people, let's say, here in Canada. We can see other planets as well and confirm that they are round. And you can even do it yourself by buying a telescope. And while Flat Earth rejects the shape of our planet, this next one rejects something much bigger, the idea that life changes. And for some people, that feels a little personal.
Science doesn't require faith. It requires evidence.
Well, it seems to me that that's just what's missing from the whole idea of evolution.
What's missing?
Evidence. Evidence is missing.
One of the biggest misconceptions in all of science is that evolution is a theory and not a fact. The idea of evolution was first put forward by Charles Darwin in his book On the Origin of Species that came out in 1859, 20 years after he originally formulated his theory. In 1831, Darwin was offered a chance to be an unpaid naturalist on the HMS Beagle for the entirety of its 5-year around the world journey. For half a decade, Darwin sailed around the globe, surveying the coast of South America, Australia, and most famously, the Galapagos Islands, where he took advantage of countless opportunities to observe plant and animal life and to collect both living and fossilized specimens for later study. Once he got back to England in 1836, Darwin began reflecting on his observations and experiences, and over the course of the next 2 years, developed the outline for his theory of evolution by natural selection, where individuals possessing traits that help them survive and reproduce, pass those traits on more often, and over the course of many generations, these small changes accumulate, causing populations to adapt and new species to emerge. For 20 years, he kept his theory to himself, saying that it felt like confessing a murder, fearing what would happen by going against the church and the dominant religious beliefs of the time. And he only did when another naturalist, Alfred Russel Wallace, independently came up with the same idea, pushing Darwin to release his findings first. And today, you will still hear people say that evolution is just a theory, but evolution means that populations change over time, and we know this to be a fact. Bacteria can evolve antibiotic resistance, viruses can mutate, and species adapt to new environments. From the National Academy of Sciences, evolution is one of the most robust and widely accepted facts in science. So why do we hear people call it a theory? It's the same as us knowing that gravity is a fact and can be explained by the theory of gravity. Germs are also a fact, and they can be explained by germ theory. Evolution is a fact, and the theory of evolution explains how it works. And we know that it's a fact because genetics reveal shared DNA across species, showing that all life on Earth share a common universal ancestor. The fossil record preserves a chronological sequence of life, showing how ancient organisms differ from modern ones and how intermediate forms existed. We have a remarkably detailed, step-by-step fossil record documenting the transition of whales from four-legged land mammals to fully aquatic creatures over a roughly 10 million year period. Evolution can be observed directly in populations that reproduce fast. For example, researchers have watched yeast populations evolve new traits in the lab over thousands of generations. There is an entire branch of science called biogeography that studies how geographical distribution matches what evolution predicts. The Hawaiian Islands are the most isolated chain of islands on planet Earth, and we find species of birds, insects, and plants that are found nowhere else in the world, but are distant cousins to mainland species. So while people might say that evolution is just a guess, multiple branches of science, from fossils, DNA, anatomy, biogeography, direct observation, and speciation, all lead us to the same conclusion, that life changes over time through natural processes. And that is what all of these conspiracies have in common. They aren't really about the moon, or the climate, or the shape of the Earth, or even Darwin. It's about something a little bit deeper, and it can be kind of hard to believe, but conspiracies do offer people comfort. They offer stories in an often very complicated world. They give us bad guys instead of randomness, certainty instead of chaos, and belonging instead of fear. Because the truth is, the human brain isn't designed for the truth. It's designed to search for meaning. And in a world that can feel very unstable, a conspiracy can feel like an answer. But it also shows us that we get to choose the world that we believe in, so maybe it's time that we believe in a good one.